Campaign 2020 is sponsored by Wisconsin Hospital Association, Quick Trip, Wisconsin Counties Association, Wisconsin Realtors Association, and Wisconsin Operating Engineers Local 139.
John Calabrese of Menomonie is a Democratic candidate in the 29th Assembly District. John, welcome back to WisconsinEye.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
You know, I'm intrigued by about the first statement you make on your campaign website. I'm a woodworker fighting against corruption. Elaborate on that.
Well, I've been a woodworker longer than I've been fighting against corruption. But I started as a cabinet maker years ago. And then I moved around California where I worked at a cabinet shop, and then back here to the Midwest where I met my wife, and worked in some shops, one in Minneapolis, and then out here in Wisconsin I started my own business. But I got drawn into politics. I was raised in a conservative family, and then things started to shift based on what I was reading and my life experience. And I think being raised conservative, I wasn't just in a left lens, and I just started to really try to drill down and figure out what the root of problems was. And I kept coming back to money and politics. So I started volunteering with a group to try to remedy that situation. And I just saw so much corruption that's been made legal in this country. And so I spent my spare time politically while woodworking, trying to take care of that.
Well, okay. A follow-up question, because we do have a list of topics to cover. As a result of what you see as the corrupting influence of money, then you're not. What limits are you putting on donations to your campaign?
Well, I think for individual candidates, or individual contributions to candidates, the limits in Wisconsin are $1,000 per person, and or from an individual person. And so I'm sticking with those guidelines, but I wouldn't take any corporate PAC money if any came. And I have said that my first order of business, if elected, is to put together some bills that would reverse some of the laws that came into effect in 2011, mainly the fact that the campaign committees of each party in each chamber, the Assembly Democrats and Republicans and Senate Democrats and Republicans, can raise unlimited funds from all sorts of groups and PACs, and a lot of them don't have to disclose who they are, and then they can take those funds and give as much as they want to a candidate.
Okay. Let's work through some issues.
Sure.
The governor would like the legislature in special session today to vote on his 9-bill package of police reforms, banning chokeholds, requiring a database on officers who use deadly force, ban no-knock warrants, uniform standards for those that want to become police officers. Do you support the governor's package, John?
I do. I think it should have been pushed a while ago. I think all of these are pretty common sense things that most people, if they weren't looking at them through a partisan lens, if you just broke them down one by one, neighbor to neighbor, I think they seem pretty common sense. No chokeholds, etc. So yes, I am in favor of those.
Senate Republicans would like to come back to the Capitol and overturn the governor's statewide mask edict, which requires masks in enclosed spaces. Where do you stand on the governor's mask edict?
I'm in favor of that too, and it's a tough one. I'm on the Dunn County Board of Supervisors, and Dunn County is except for Menomonie, it's a pretty rural county, and so I understand the concern from some people, and the fact that some people might think that this is overblown, and why in rural areas do we need to follow the mandate? But at the same time, on the county board, we have access to a lot of scientific research, and I listen to my health and human services people over there, and scientists are saying that this is the best way to combat this. And the governor's mandate is not indefinite, it's not forever. And I think we need to come together as a country and as a state and say, okay, let's just do this and let's see what happens in the next 4-6 months. And so I don't think it's an easy decision for the governor, but if that's what the scientists and the experts who know this are saying, then I think that's what we should follow.
The debate in the Capitol over who should draw the next congressional and legislative district lines. The Constitution says the party in power. The governor says a People's Maps Commission. Where do you stand on that issue?
I think I side with the people. It's not just because it's the governor. Many counties have held referendums, non-binding referendums about this issue, and in poll after poll, overwhelming support for fair maps. And the argument on the right is that nobody is nonpartisan. There's nothing that can always be 100% fair, but many states have come up with solutions and scientific methods based on geography and population to come up with a plan, come up with maps, and have them approved by a nonpartisan board. And I think that it is possible.
This issue comes up every session. I think I asked you about it last time around. Do you support legalizing both recreational and medical marijuana?
I do. And that, again, has also been done in other states. I think if it were something that had not been studied, had not had results, we've been studying it for a long time. And I think that one of the largest obstacles to that is the influence that the Tavern League has on the legislature. And that's why we have the most lax drunk driving laws in the country. And marijuana can generate a big amount of tax revenue for the state. It's nowhere near as dangerous as alcohol. And we have liquor stores and bars on every corner in every town. And the medical benefits are probably more than we even realize and would realize if we could study it some more.
We got a report yesterday that said state tax collections were up slightly in the year that ended June 30. There's a lot of concern because of the pandemic and the hit it's had on the economy for the current tax year. If we don't get $1 billion, $1.5 billion in state tax collections, do we cut spending or do we raise taxes and fees?
Well, I think that what we need to do is lay out the budgets of the last few bienniums and take a look at where that money goes. And I think that those two options that you gave are not the only options, because even since Governor Evers has been in power, there is still avenues and still things that have been written into the law through the WEDC that the Republicans have been using for the last 10, 11 years, a lot of tax breaks and subsidies and grants to well-connected companies and individuals. And, the people on the left aren't immune from that either. Governor Evers received for his gubernatorial campaign a large 35 grand donation from that shipbuilding company in Marinette that he ended up giving a grant to for millions of dollars. And I don't know if that's connected, but that's the appearance of some sort of corruption. And that's just one instance of huge tax break subsidies and giveaways. So if we close up some of those, we might not need to tax people who can't be taxed anymore. And we can maybe cut down on cutting some of the services. But some tough decisions are going to have to be made.
Let's talk about property taxes. Wisconsin is a high property tax state. You know all about property taxes as a member of the Dunn County Board. To control property taxes for more than 20 years, school boards, local governments like you serve on have had caps and limits on property tax levies. If you're elected voting on the next state budget, should we keep those caps and limits on property tax levies in place?
I don't think so. And I, last time you asked me that question, I did not know as much about it. And I gave a blanket, no, we shouldn't have those, because the little bit that I read led me to believe that. But I think that as lawmakers who spend a lot of time not working, we have plenty of time where we could work, and we can parse through those one by one. And at the county level, what I've seen is that at the bare minimum, which we could just start with, which my county manager has talked about and has offered up to legislators when they happen to come to a board meeting occasionally, is at least the county share that they get from the state should keep up with standard cost of living indexes, and it doesn't even keep up with that. And I think if we found ways for the counties to raise revenue, it wouldn't be such a drastic thing like a massive wheel tax, or people's property taxes still going up based on net new construction or whatever it is. I think there are solutions that don't hurt the everyday people some sales tax, and some other things that can be come up with if we removed a little bit of the partisan lens.
Well, okay, let's stay on property taxes for one more question. To ease the reliance on property taxes, should local governments have additional new alternative revenue sources? Evan Goyke in Milwaukee says Milwaukee should levy a half-cent sales tax. Republican Representative John Mako says let's expand the state sales tax to some now exempt products and services and give local governments some of that money. Should local governments have new revenue options?
I think so. I really do. And I think it would be accepted a lot more by the people to have a half cent or a cent sales tax rather than seeing their property taxes go up. And I think those avenues should be investigated. And I think that maybe the gas tax too that was proposed in the last budget could really help out as well.
So you'd be willing to raise that gas tax? The governor, as you just alluded to, did recommend an increase.
Yes, I think so. We get a lot of traffic through the state from out-of-state people, and they could add to our revenue base for sure.
Hospitals, Wisconsin nationally, have played a frontline role in treating COVID patients. If you're in the legislature voting on the next state budget, should hospitals be an even greater priority than they might be in the current state budget?
I think so. I think that we have seen a lot of, I know that we have seen a lot of rural hospitals close. I know that that nursing homes are under a lot of stress as well, and healthcare workers are in large demand and short supply, and we need to expand the nursing programs in the UW system. And first and foremost, we need to take the Medicaid expansion, because those reimbursement rates are leading to a lot of stress for nursing homes and hospitals and older people. So yes, it should be a focus, and as well as taking care of the all the hospital workers, not just the nurses and doctors, but the people who work and keeping it clean and do all the other work there. We need to make that a focus.
Republicans who control the U.S. Senate say any new COVID relief package should include exempting businesses and organizations who use the CDC protocols to protect their customers and employees from COVID, from lawsuits. State Senator in Wisconsin, State Senator Kappinga just today sent out a press release saying, I've sponsored a bill with this exemption from lawsuits. Do we need a state law exempting those businesses?
I don't think so. And I think that what this shows, I saw a little bit of that today. And what this shows in a time where, the world is watching what happened in Kenosha. They're watching what's going on this summer in the United States, and the Republicans have not only not been back to work for months at a time, they have been specifically called to work, and they make a grandstanding show of coming in for a minute and gaveling out as quick as they can. But as soon as the Wisconsin manufacturers and commerce and the business groups come together and snap their fingers, they rush to create a bill. And there are plenty of things in our law books already that will protect people from frivolous lawsuits or unnecessary lawsuits. And we don't know exactly what it means to the vague sort of, this would only be for companies who followed the proper COVID protocols. And those aren't all written down in law either. And what this is just an example of businesses using the people that they have on their speed dial in the legislature to protect them in case they might have to pay for something that they actually did wrong. That's the way I look at it.
Should local governments like the county board you serve on, when they contemplate a major public work project, should they give preference to Wisconsin businesses? A study found that in 2015, out-of-state contractors got $72 million in public works contracts. That more than doubled to $146 million in 2018. Should the Dunn County Board have to give a preference to Wisconsin businesses?
I think so. I think they should, and I think that would also play very well with people if the regular people knew that, if they knew those numbers that you just said, and if they knew why that happens. It's not to say that you always give it to someone local, because maybe their rate is far too much. Maybe they don't have the proper equipment. Maybe they're not experienced in the job that you need. but you should at least seek that out. And especially nowadays in the time of COVID, I think we need to look in general at systems that are more local, whether it's food systems or school systems or general business and trucking systems to try to start, because we're not supposed to be traveling as much, and we can bring our communities together. And I think that would be a great step, at least to explore that at the beginning of a project.
Thank you. Final question, differences between you and your opponent on November 3?
Yes. My opponent is, I've been asked variations on this, and it's something that I don't look too deeply into, and I don't know him that well. I don't know him personally. I know a little bit of his history, but what happens with the Republican Party in Wisconsin, and they are very entrenched, they are very well organized, and they cross all their T's and dot all their I's, and they have spoken with him, and they have given him his marching orders. And no matter who my opponent is, if they raise their hand and are willing to join that team in Madison, then I know who they are, and they will be like the last couple representatives here who rarely, if ever, would even consider voting against their caucus. So to me, it's just another placeholder, and what I would bring is independence. I would bring, like I did in this interview, if someone from my caucus, someone from the Democrats does something that I don't think is good for the people of the 29th, or that I think gives the appearance of corruption, or is something that's just not right, I'm gonna say it. And so I offer independence.
Thank you. John Calabrese of Menomonie is the Democratic candidate in the 29th Assembly District. The election is November 3. John, thanks for talking to WisconsinEye.
Thank you, sir. Have a good day.
You too. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Campaign 2020 is sponsored by Wisconsin Hospital Association, Quick Trip, Wisconsin Counties Association, Wisconsin Realtors Association, and Wisconsin Operating Engineers Local 139.